Welcome, welcome. Hello, hello. Okay, welcome to week 4, our final week of our Pilates series. I can see a couple people just trickling in still, so I'll just wait a moment here before we get started. Hello. Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us. Today is week 4 of the Pilates series. So it's our final class. And we are going to be doing some exercises that are going to be familiar from our previous weeks, but of course, always progressing and adding on a little bit. Our Pilates class is done on a platform. So you can see here that I've got something set up behind me. So not from a floor, but you can use a couch or a bed or some kind of a raised platform that you can sit on and then transfer to a lying position afterwards. Of course, by all means, if you prefer to be doing the class from a floor, you are welcome to as well. But the class was not designed for work per se. So it's up to you what platform or floor you want to use at home, whatever you're comfortable with. Now, I do have a little pillow that I'm using today, just something to put under my head, just to make things a little bit more comfortable for my neck. Of course, you are welcome to either use a thin pillow, no pillow, or you can use multiple pillows if you like, whatever works for you, whatever gets you to be in a comfortable position when we are doing our class. And our class is recorded just like our previous weeks. So you should be able to see the recording from our classes on our Parkinson Society BC YouTube channel in the next week or so. And so you're welcome to go online onto the YouTube channel and redo any of the classes that you would like to do again. Yeah. And because we are in the webinar platform of Zoom today, you are not going to be able to unmute yourself on the microphone unless you raise your hand, then in which case I will unmute your microphone and you are welcome to ask the question if you like, or you can use the chat box if you prefer. Equally, you are welcome to email us if that works better for you, if you didn't think of any questions or if you had something that you would like to ask outside of the class. And I will just go ahead here and type in our email address in the chat box, which is info@parkinson.bc.ca if you did want to email us for any questions or any comments or anything like that. Okay. Let's get started. So I'm going to move back and hopefully you can see me and you can hear me okay. I know my camera set up a little bit on an angle, so this looks a little further away than this side, but I promise you it is straight. It's just the screen looks like it's a little bit lopsided, but hopefully that doesn't bother us too much. Okay, we're gonna start in our seated position. And I want you to just move yourself forward in the seated position. So whether you're on a chair, a couch, a bed, I just want you to move your bottom forward, just so that way we're not so far back that the legs are now touching the platform, because then we'll be slouching back. So we want to be shuffling ourselves forward in the couch position or on the bed, just to get yourself nice and tall. And then what we're going to start with today is we're going to have our feet flat onto the floor, and we're going to sit up nice and tall, thinking about your sit bones. So really take a moment here to feel your sitting bones on the couch or on the bed. And you're going to imagine each of your vertebrae, so each of your spinal bones are stacked one on top of the other, kind of like a tower made out of Legos. And we're going to stack our entire spinal column, one on top of the other, nice and tall over our sit bones here. And we're going to try to maintain this posture with the crown reaching up towards the ceiling. And we're going to float both of our arms up in front of us. Palms facing in, shoulders away from the ears. From here, I'm going to pull one elbow back into our bow and arrow, and I'm going to let the eyes follow where my arm is going, and then I'm going to reach it back out in front of me. Same to the other side. Pulling the elbow back, leading with the elbow, and then coming back forward. So as we're doing this movement, you'll notice that we're doing a bit of a rotation in our spine here. And we're going to try to keep our spine nice and tall. So we're rotating on the spot, keeping your vertebrae stacked, one on top of the other, letting your gaze follow where your elbow is going. Shoulders away from the ears. Nice bow and arrow rotation here. Making sure we're not holding the breath, but breathing just at a natural pace for you. Seeing if you can rotate a little further with every repetition. Crown of the head still reaching for the ceiling. And then on the next one, we're going to extend that back arm fully and let our eyes follow. So rather than just bending the elbow back, we're going to reach the fingertips all the way back behind us as well. Shoulders away from the ears. So we're twisting a little bit further here, reaching the fingers to the back wall. Long neck, crown of the head still reaching for the ceiling. Remember, you're trying to keep your vertebrae stacked, one on top of the other. Crown of the head reaching for the ceiling. One more. And we're going to lower the arms. Keeping our postures nice and tall, our vertebrae stacked one on top of the other. We're going to lift one heel off the floor while we reach the opposite arm up overhead, and then we're going to switch sides. So we're doing a little bit of our Pilates march with toy soldier arms here. Keeping the arms nice and long, the elbows straight, movement coming from the shoulders. Check in with your posture. Are we still sitting up nice and tall? Are our vertebrae still stacked on top of our sitting bones? What about our head? Are we still reaching the crown of the head to the ceiling? Imagine balancing a jug of water on the top of your head, and you're keeping it nice and still during our seated march position here. Keep the trunk nice and tall, chest open. Let's go for a 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Drop the arms. Keep the legs going. We're going first. 2 fifth. 2 second. And lower. Nice and tall. First. Reach up overhead. Open. And down. And repeat. Keep the spine stacked nice and tall on top of the sitting bones. Chest open, shoulders away from the ears. First, 2 fifth, 2 second, and lower. Keep going. One more. Chest open, head tall, and lower down. Place the hands onto the platform that you're sitting on, and we're going to go into our mermaid stretch. Feel your toes and your heels flat onto the floor, and we're going to reach sideways, up and over. And we're going to do a Big stretch leaning to the side like you're holding a big beach ball, making sure your sit bone is still down on the bed. So we're not lifting our sit bones off, but we're keeping both sit bones on the bed. And then we're going to come back up. Same to the other side, scooping up and over. And reach like you're holding a big beach ball beside you. Not too much weight on the bottom hand. Your hip bone's still sinking down into the bed equally on both sides. And coming back up, same thing again, up and over. Keep both sit bones grounded. Keep both sit bones down. And then lower the arms. Again, up and over. Both sit bones down, like you're holding a big beach ball. And coming down, 2 more. Reach up and over. Nice and long through the trunk. And lower again, reaching up and over. Both sit bones on the bed. And coming up and lower. We're now going to move into a lying position. You're going to take your time here. You can have one hand on the bed and sliding away from your sit bone so that you're lying yourself down. And then when you're ready, place your legs onto the platform and come into a lying position. Remember, if you would like a pillow under your head or multiple, you're welcome to do so, especially if you find that your head and your shoulders are already lifted off the bed and you can't quite get it down. From here, I want you to bend both of your knees such that your feet are flat on the bed. And then we're going to open the toes out to the side, then open the heels. So now our legs are parallel. We're going to quickly go over our 5 Pilates rest positions, starting with our pelvis. So we're making a little diamond shape with our hand, just like our previous weeks where the thumbs come together and the fingers come together into a diamond shape. We're going to place the thumb side of the diamond shape into our belly button and then let the rest of the hand fall down onto our pelvis. So it looks like this, okay? Belly button and then the rest of the hand. You're going to imagine in this little diamond, you've got a marble ball or a marble little sphere of some sort, and you're going to use your pelvis movement here to roll that marble to the top of the diamond and then roll it to the bottom of the diamond. Again, rolling that marble to the top of the diamond, then to the bottom of the diamond. If I move my hand for a second, you'll see the pelvis movement here. I'm rolling to the top of the diamond and to the bottom of the diamond. Once you think you have this movement down, you're welcome to move your hands onto the bed and you just use your pelvis movement to do the rolling here. And with each repetition, I want you to make this rocking motion smaller and smaller and smaller until you find a neutral point where you're halfway between going as far as you can one way and going as far as you can the other way. So you're kind of at a midpoint wherever that is for you today. That is your neutral pelvis. That is the first item on your 5 Pilates rest position. And the second thing we're going to think about is our pelvic floor. You're going to imagine you're sitting on a big block of ice and you went, ooh, it's very cold. And you pulled up a little bit through your pelvic floor, not clenching, but a soft contraction. That's item 2 on the 5 Pilates rest element list. The third thing we're thinking about is going to be our ribs. We're going to imagine the ribs belted down into the bed, so we're not flaring up. We're melting the ribs down while maintaining our neutral pelvis and our pelvic floor contraction. And the fourth item on our 5 Pilates rest element is going to be the shoulder blades. You're thinking about the shoulder blades pressing down, sinking down into the bed and sliding towards your heels such that your shoulders are away from the ears. And the last item on the 5 Pilates rest list is going to be our head and our neck. You're going to imagine lengthening the back of your neck, almost like you're holding a little peach underneath the chin. At all times during our class today, you're going to be thinking about these 5 elements And you're going to try to maintain them as much as you can. Inhale to prepare. Exhale to float one leg up to tabletop. Inhale to hold. And exhale, we're going to float the second leg up to tabletop. And when we're in this tabletop position, we're going to think about maintaining all 5 of our Pilates rest elements. We're going to try to avoid letting our back lift up like this as we lift our second leg up to tabletop. And then we're going to lower the first leg down and then the second leg down to repeat. Inhale to prepare. Exhale to float one leg up to tabletop. Inhale to deepen the contraction in our abdominals, and exhale to float the second leg up to tabletop. Keeping your neutral pelvis, don't let your low back lift off the bed. Keep the ribs melted down into the bed. Shoulder blades pressing down and towards the heels, long back of the neck. And then lower the first leg down, lower the second leg, and repeat. Inhale to prepare. Exhale to float the first leg up to tabletop. Inhale to deepen the contraction in your abdominals. Exhale to float the second leg to tabletop. And then we're going to lower again. Take your time on this. We're doing this double tabletop position in our own time. Remember to keep the ribs melted down into the bed. Neck nice and long, little peach under the chin, shoulders away from the ears. Make sure you're breathing as you're doing this. If you like a little bit of added challenge, you're welcome to reach these arms up towards the ceiling while doing your double tabletop position. But this is only if you are able to do the double tabletop position with your arms down without losing the 5 Pilates elements that we spoke about a moment ago. If you find that your back is lifting off the bed as you're doing double tabletop, then we need to go into our single tabletop again, like this. So you can always modify back to our single tabletop here. So that way we're keeping our Pilates rest positions intact the entire time. Sorry, I'm just closing my eyes here because the sun is shining right into them. Keep going with this exercise, either your single tabletop or your double tabletop or your double tabletop with the arms reaching up towards the ceiling. A few more. Remember to breathe. Go at your own pace, one more. And then lower your arms and rest for a second. You can let go of those 5 Pilates elements. And then we're going to find our neutral pelvis again. You can start with the rocking of our pelvis here, like that marble analogy we mentioned at the beginning of the class. Find your neutral pelvis where you're halfway between going as far as you can one way and going as far as you can the other way. Gentle pull up through the pelvic floor, ribs melted down into the bed, shoulder blades pressing down into the bed and sliding slightly towards your heels, long back of the neck, little peach under the chin. From here, we're going to go into our abdo prep. So today, we are going to go into our double tabletop to do this. So we're going to float one leg up to tabletop, deepen the contraction in our abdominals, and then float the second leg up to tabletop without the low back lifting off the bed. From here, we're going to imagine this little buckle, little seatbelt from the bottom of our ribs clipping into the front of our hips. So we're going to tighten that seat belt and float the shoulders and head up off the bed. And then we're going to lower back down, keeping your pelvis position intact. So we're trying not to let ourselves lift up from the low back as we're doing this. Think about that little peach underneath the chin as you lift up and lower down. So we're going to try not to let our neck stick out. You're keeping your head and neck in that nice position. Little peach underneath the chin, ribs melted down into the bed. Let's go for 10. 9. Think about that seat belt from the ribs to the hips. 8. 7. If this is too hard, put one leg down. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. And hug those knees into your chest for a moment, or let those legs drop. Relax the head and neck, shake out your head from side to side, almost like you're saying no to somebody, keeping the head nice and heavy onto the bed or the couch. Just loosen any tension you may have built up by accident. Okay, now we're gonna lower the legs back into our bent knee position. From here, we're gonna place our hands behind our ears or behind the temples, whatever's comfortable for you. And we're gonna go into our oblique prep. So to start this, we're gonna think about our single leg tabletop by maintaining our 5 Pilates rest elements. So finding your neutral pelvis, pulling up through the pelvic floor, ribs melted down into the bed, shoulder blades pressing down and sliding towards the feet, long back of the neck, little peach under the chin. We're going to float one leg up to tabletop and then bring it back down without moving any of the 5 Pilates rest elements we just spoke about. So you want this movement to be very stable in your trunk. So if I covered your legs with a big sheet and I couldn't see your legs at all, it shouldn't look like you're moving. And then we're going to think about our shoulder reaching towards the opposite hip and then lowering down. Almost like that seatbelt analogy again, except this time is the shoulder to the opposite hip. So we're not thinking about the elbow crunching to the knee, we're thinking about the shoulder. So the arms stay open the entire time, and I'm not pulling my neck to one side, but I'm thinking about the shoulder reaching to the opposite hip. And as we're doing this, the opposite knee, the stationary knee that's not moving, you're going to imagine you're balancing a little glass of water there, and you don't want that knee to be shaking or moving as we're doing this oblique prep here. Let's go for 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. And rest. You can let those legs slide out away from you. Lower the arms for a second. Circle the ankles if you like. I'll close my eyes again because the sun is shining in nice and bright. It's beautiful, but ooh, very bright. So I promise I'm not falling asleep on you. I'm just keeping my eyes closed so I can not hurt them from the sun. Okay, we're gonna come back into our bent knee position now. And we're gonna revisit our 5 Pilates rest elements for a second here. And what we're gonna do today is we're going to do our shoulder bridge just like last week, but we're gonna add on a little bit. So let me just remind you what our normal shoulder bridge is. So remember that pelvis moving, that pelvis rocking motion with that marble in the diamond that we did at the beginning. So this is exactly what the movement is going to start with. We're going to imagine we're rolling that marble to the top of the diamond, and then I'm going to continue peeling each vertebrae off the bed one at a time until I'm in this inclined position from my knee to my breastbone in one inclined line. And then from here, I'm going to lower down each vertebrae one at a time all the way down. So you want to almost imagine your spine like a string of pearls in the sand, and I'm pulling on one end of the string, and each pearl is coming off the sand one at a time. And then when I lower down, each pearl is lowering down one at a time into the sand. So take a few moments here and do a few shoulder bridges, thinking about that spinal articulation, where you're peeling each vertebrae off the bed one at a time, starting from your tailbone. And then you are lowering each vertebrae one at a time, starting from the mid ribs. Your tailbone should be the last thing to hit the bed. And just take a few moments here to do a couple of these. Get yourself into that mindset of doing shoulder bridges so we can remember how to do them. Keep the shoulders away from the ears, ribs melted down into the spinal column. And then you can either stay here, or if you like an added challenge, when you get to the top of your shoulder bridge, I want you to extend one of your knees and then lowering back down. And the important thing here is when you're extending the knee at the top, what I don't want to happen is this, for us to all of a sudden tip our hip down, or for us to now drop the hip back down. So the idea is when you're at the top of the shoulder bridge, you want to maintain this position. Imagine that spirit level sitting on your pelvis, and you want that little bubble to stay in the middle as you straighten one of your legs and then lower back down. If this is too difficult and you want an in-between modification, you're welcome to lift the heels on one foot. I don't know if you can see that. Lift the heel on one foot and then lower back down, and then same with the other side. So you're doing your shoulder bridge, articulating through the spine, lifting one of the heels, and then coming back down. Keep going for a second. I'm just going to lower the blinds here so I can actually look at you. And hopefully that way you can see me a little better. So back to our shoulder bridge, one vertebrae at a time, lifting up. And then you can either pop the heel on one side, or you can straighten one of your knees without hip dipping back down. And then you're going to lower all the way back down, one vertebrae at a time. So really think about that analogy of that string of pearls in the sand, where you're pulling on one end of the string and each pearl is lifting off the sand one at a time. And then when you lower down, each pearl is pressing back down into the sand one at a time. Let's do 4 more wherever you are in your own time. Spirit level, sitting on your pelvis, thinking about that little bubble staying in the middle as much as possible. And of course, this will also depend on the surface that you're on, because if you're on a super soft bed or super soft couch, it might feel a little bit challenging to do because you are on a soft surface, but regardless of that, you're trying your best to hold your stability. Check in with your posture. Are your shoulders up to your ears, or are they still pressing down into the bed and sliding towards your heels? Check in with your neck posture. Little peach so under the chin, long back of the neck. And then when you've done your 4, give yourself a rest for a moment. You can pull those knees into your chest for a bit of a rest, or you're welcome to Just stretch those legs out, whatever works for you. Give yourselves a few deep breaths here to reset. When you're ready, we're going to go into our last exercise, lying on our back. And we're going to find our 5 Pilates rest positions. Again, starting with the pelvis, you're thinking about that neutral pelvis, that rocking motion, and you're aiming for halfway in between, going as far as you can one way and halfway between going as far as you can the other way. Find your neutral pelvis, then pull up gently through the pelvic floor, almost like you're sitting on a block of ice. And then you're thinking about your ribs melting down into the bed, shoulder blades pressing down into the bed and sliding towards your feet, long back of the neck, little peach under the chin. We're going to hold these positions here, and without moving them or disturbing the 5 positions, we're going to float one leg up to tabletop, and we're going to go into some hip circles. I want to imagine that there's a flashlight attached to your shin and it's pointing up at the ceiling. And we're going to draw some circles in the ceiling with that light. Now, the circles that I'm drawing here, I'm leading the movement with my shin. So I'm not doing this with my knee. So I'm not bending and straightening my knee like this. I'm keeping this 90-degree angle in my knee here, and I'm not doing this with my leg either, but I'm trying to think about the shin drawing circles in the ceiling. And as I'm doing this, you can make the movement smaller and slower if you like. It doesn't have to be the same range or the speed that I'm doing. But I want you to think about your opposite knee, the knee that's not moving. Imagine you got a glass of water balancing there, and we don't want this to happen. So we don't want the other knee to be wobbling. You want to imagine that glass of water balancing on that knee, and you're keeping it as stable as possible, making sure your low back's not lifting or arching off the bed. You want to keep that neutral pelvis position. And just like before, if you imagine I take a big sheet and I covered your legs from the hip down, and I was only looking at your torso, it shouldn't look like you're moving at all. So you shouldn't be rocking side to side because of the movement of the legs. So we're really trying to dissociate the movement of our limbs from our trunk. So we're trying to be as stable as possible in our trunk without having the legs move our trunk from side to side or rotate our trunk in any way. Check in with your posture. Are our ribs still melted down into the bed? What about our neck? Is it still nice and long? Little peach still under the chin, shoulder blades pressing down. And then when you're ready, you're going to circle in the opposite direction with that same leg. So whichever direction you were doing before, you're going to go opposite to that. Still thinking about that other knee, the stationary knee, having a little jug of water or glass of water, balancing on the kneecap that you're trying to keep steady. Spirit level sitting on your pelvis, keeping that little bubble in the middle. And rest there, lower the leg down. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to float our other leg up to tabletop. And just like before, we're going to draw some circles in the ceiling with our shin. And you might notice that one side is easier than the other, and that's okay. We all have our differences on both sides of the body. So if this side feels more difficult to control, you're welcome to make the movement smaller in range and also maybe a little slower. Thinking about the opposite knee, trying to keep it as still as possible. Imagine that little glass of water sitting on your pelvis. Try not to let yourself rock sideways. Spirit level sitting on your pelvis. Long back of the neck, shoulders away from the ears, ribs melted down into the bed. I know, lots to think about here. Keeping that trunk as stable as you can despite the leg moving. And then when you're ready, you're going to go in the opposite direction here, thinking about the shin drawing circles into the ceiling. Glass of water on the opposite knee. This side is more challenging for me, and I can feel my knee starting to wobble a little bit. Long back of the neck. Make sure you're not holding your breath. 2 more wherever you are. And then rest the legs back down. Take a moment here for a few deep breaths if you like. And then when you're ready, you're going to roll onto your side. Doesn't matter what side you're doing because we're going to do both. Here on your side, you're welcome to put a little pillow underneath your head if you would like, if it's comfortable for you. You're going to be in a bent position with your legs. So your feet should be in line with your hips, should be in line with the shoulders. So we don't want the legs to be too far forward or too far back. So you want them to be in line so that the feet, the heels are in line with the hip, in line with the shoulder. From here, you're going to think about pulling the top hip down towards your feet such that there's a little gap underneath your side. And then you're imagining you got headlights at the front of your hips that are pointing forward, and you want to point them slightly down towards the floor while maintaining that little gap under the spine, shoulders away from the ears, ribs melted back into the spinal column. From here, we're going to start with our clamshell. So we're going to be floating the heels up off the bed again, like last time, into our clams level 2. So maintaining the gap underneath the spine and the headlights pointing slightly down at the floor. And you're going to open the top knee and then close it back down. So we are doing our clams level 2 here. And while we're doing the clams movement, you want to make sure the headlights are still pointing slightly down towards the floor, and you still got that gap under the spine. If this is too much, bring the heels down and do the same thing, but still thinking about that hip pulling towards the feet such that you got the gap under your spine and the front of the hip slightly down to the floor. So either way, you can have your feet down or have your feet up into our clams here. Shoulders away from the ears. Keep the headlight pointing slightly down. Don't let yourself roll back. Light fingertips. Imagine little eggshells on the bed, so you don't want to be crushing the eggshells, just light fingertips. Let me lower the blinds down because I don't know if you can see my feet there. Keep going. That's better. That way you don't have the light shining on my feet and making them look like they merge with the background. Let's do 4 more wherever you are. And rest your feet down. You're welcome to rub out your hip a little bit if you like. And then we're going to go into our next exercise, which is going to be our side kick. So just like before, we're keeping our knees in a bent position. Our feet should be in line with the hip, in line with the shoulder. You're thinking about the shoulders pulling away from the ears, ribs melted back into your spinal column, light fingertips, top of the hip pulling down towards the feet so that you have a little gap underneath your spine. And this time our headlights are going to stay pointing forward in front of us. You have 2 options here. Option 1, we're going to float the top leg up in a bent position. And I want you to imagine there's a glass table underneath the top leg, and you're dusting the glass table here with that bent knee. And so as you're dusting the glass table, your knee and your foot should be in one line. Your knee shouldn't be lower. Your foot shouldn't be lower. You want the knee and the foot to be in one line here.
And the gap between your thighs should stay the same. So you don't want the hip to fall down when you're at the back, and you don't want the hip to fall down when you come forward. So you want that gap to be the same the entire time you are dusting that glass table. You can either stay here, or if you like a challenge, have that leg straight. You're going to point the toes as you dust the glass table forward, then flex the foot as you dust the glass table back behind you. Still thinking about that gap between your thighs, staying the same, so that we don't lower the leg down or lower the leg down as we come back. So you want the gap between the thigh to remain the same. And as we're doing this, it's really important that we don't fall back as we bring the leg back, and we want to maintain that little gap under our spine as we're doing this movement. Shoulders away from the ears. Now, you'll probably notice that sometimes your leg might do this and it shakes a little bit going up and down, and you want to try your best to not let the leg do that. So you can either make the movement smaller. So rather than going all the way forward and all the way back, you're welcome to make the movement much smaller if you like, or go back to the bent knee position. Whatever works for you. Keep the headlights pointing forward. Don't let the headlights point up at the ceiling when you go back, or point down at the floor as you come forward. Shoulders away from the ears. Ribs melted back into the spinal column. Light fingertips. Three more wherever you are. Don't let the leg fall down. Long neck, little peach under the chin. And then relax. You can rub out your hip if you like. And then when you're ready, we're going to roll onto our back and then roll on to the other side. For me, I'm going to sit up and swing my legs around because I want to face you. But at home, you are welcome to just roll over onto the other side if you've got room. Okay. So we're going to start with our clamps position again. We're going to bend both of our knees, and you're going to think about your feet aligning with your hip, aligning with the shoulders. So don't let your legs go too far forward or too far back. Light fingertips on the bed. We're going to think about pulling that top hip down towards the feet, such that you create a little gap underneath the spine. And then you're thinking about the headlights at the front of your hip. They're pointing at the side right now, and you want to point them slightly down to the floor while maintaining that gap under your side. Ribs melted back into the spinal column, shoulders away from the ears, the long back of the neck. Imagine a little peach under the chin. When you're ready, we're going to float both legs up off the bed, still maintaining that gap under the spine and the headlights pointing slightly down to the floor. We're going to go into our clamps. You're going to open your top knee while keeping your feet together. Now, as you're doing this, don't let yourself lose that gap underneath the spine, and keep the headlights pointing down slightly at the floor. So what we don't want to happen is when you open, we all of a sudden roll back. Did you see that? I'm exaggerating, but as you open, we don't want you to roll back. So you want the headlights to be pointing down slightly at all times, keeping that that gap underneath the spine. Shoulders away from the ears, thinking about the ribs melted back into your spinal column, fingertips light on the bed. Remember to breathe. Check in with your posture. How's our neck? Do we still have long back of the neck, little peach under the chin? Headlights at the front of the hips, pointing slightly down towards the floor. Gap underneath the spine. 4 more, wherever you are. And rest for a second when you've completed your 4. We're going to go into our side kick. So we're still thinking about our feet being in line with our hip, in line with our shoulders. And from here, we're going to think about the top hip pulling down towards the feet, such that you have a little gap underneath your side, and headlights are going to stay pointing in front of us, light fingertips on the bed. From here, you have 2 options. You can either float the top leg up in the bent position. Imagine dusting a glass table with that top leg, keeping the knee and the foot aligned so that the foot's not lower, the knee's not lower. You want to keep the entire shin parallel to the floor. The gap between the thighs stays the same, so it doesn't change at any point. Or option 2, straighten that top leg and you point the toes as you come forward, flex the foot as you go back. So as we do this, we're trying not to twist our body, and we're trying not to let the leg go up and down like this. We want to keep it nice and still. Keep that distance from the bed the same, whether you're going forward or backwards. Keep the front of the headlights here pointing in front of you. So don't let it point up towards the ceiling. And again, just like before, you're welcome to make the range smaller or go down a level and make the range smaller, because we want to make sure that the stability in our trunk is the main focus here. 4 more, wherever you are. And when you've done your 4, you can rest and rub out your hip if you like. Take a moment here to reset. And then when you're ready, you are welcome to bring yourself up into a seated position. Take your time, because we've been lying down for a little while, and I don't want you to get too dizzy sitting back up. But take a moment here to shuffle yourself to the front of the seat, pressing the soles of the feet down into the earth. I want you to really feel your sit bones here. So maybe rock side to side gently a couple of times and really feel your sitting bones pressing down into the supporting surface, whether that's a bed or a couch, whatever you're sitting on. And you're going to think about your vertebrae or your spinal bones stacking one on top of the other over your sit bones, kind of like a tower of Legos. And we're going to bring our fingertips to the bed beside us, sitting up nice and tall. We're going to float the arms up into a T shape, palms facing down. And then we're going to rotate our palms up at the ceiling. And we're going to do a high lift here. We're thinking about our breastbone going up to the ceiling, almost like this part of your ribs is being cut off and everything above this point is being pulled up and over. And then we bring ourselves back again, palms facing down, back to our ribs and our spine stacked on top of each other. And then again, palms up to the ceiling, high lift, up and over, breastbone towards the ceiling. And then coming back again. 2 more. Up and over, breastbone to the ceiling. Everything underneath the breastbone is still stacked, one on top of the other. 1 more. Up and over. And down. And then we bring the arms back to the bed. Going back to our mermaid stretch, we're going up and over, almost like we're holding a big beach ball beside us.
Both hips pressing down into the bed. Don't let your hip lift off. And then we come back. Same to the other side, up and over. Both sit bones pressing down equally. And coming back up. And again, reaching up and over. Both sit bones on the bed. One more. Reaching up and over. And coming back. Hands back down. We're going to stack our hands on top of the other like so that our forearms are stacked, shoulders away from the ears. Now, this little rectangle that you just created with your arms stacked and your breastbone, you're going to move that entire rectangle unit over to the corner. So we're rotating our spine on the spot into our spine twist, and then coming back to the middle. So as we rotate, we want to keep our spine stacked one on top of the other. Just like we mentioned a moment ago, you're keeping all of your vertebrae stacked. Crown of the head reaching for the ceiling, leading the movement with your breastbone, the entire rectangular unit moving together. So it's not just the arms, but the entire unit moving together. One more each side. Last time to the other side. And then float the arms down. Breath in, scoop the arms, cross them up and over, and breathing out. And again, breath in. And out. One more. Breath in. And out. And you are finished. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for our Pilates series. I hope you've enjoyed the session. You are welcome to have a look at our future exercise classes coming up. So now that the series is over, on Thursdays, we are now going to have the Tai Chi class. So if you haven't done Tai Chi before, you are welcome to sign up. We've done Tai Chi before, and this next series is going to be a beginner's progression series, which basically just means that it'll be building on from some of the skills that you may have learned in the beginner series class. However, if you are new to Tai Chi, you've never done it before, you haven't done our beginners class before, you are still welcome to join in. There will be a revision. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you for your comments, everybody. I don't know if there's any questions. I don't think so. Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for the Pilates series. If you want to have a look at the class again, you can check out our Parkinson's YouTube channel, which is Parkinson Society BC, all in one word, no spaces, on YouTube. And you will see the recordings from the Pilates classes being uploaded there. Hopefully, by the end of next week, you'll see this class uploaded. The first 3 classes are already there. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. I will see you at some point in the future, I'm sure. Please do sign up for our future classes if you would like to do them. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Have a great week.